Hello everyone, my name is Rochelle Innocent and I'm the founder and CEO of Project Purpose. Welcome to our channel. Our community is focused on fostering the intellectual and character development in children. We do this through our parent-child workshops that are focused on 4 themes: autonomy, self-efficacy, compassion, and self-concept, in order to cultivate grit, perseverance, and resilience in each child. And we are so thrilled to be offering one of the first of its kind digital, virtual, and continuous learning environments, enabling parents and children to connect from all around the world. At Project Purpose, our overarching mandate is to renew and rebuild family, community, and relationships. Our different social media platforms provide us with an opportunity to have discussions on all topics that relate to family, community, and relationships with ourselves as well as with others, with a primary focus on mental health and education. More precisely, the ways that the institutions of mental health and education play a role and have played a role in our societies at large. These discussions and debates provide us with an opportunity to think critically about what needs to change within these structures for us to live up to our bold slogan: support, protect, and empower each child through youth-focused development, better known as leadership in juvenescence. We recognize that in valuing our children's leadership potential, this also translates as recreating and co-creating environments, both socially and politically, that will enable our children to thrive. For those of you who are particularly keen on the topic, we also write thought pieces every other Sunday, and we actually have one scheduled to drop this upcoming Sunday. So definitely be sure to meander over to the website and check out our online content. If it is the case that you are looking for a listening alternative, well, we're available on 10 different podcast platforms for your listening leisure, and we provided you with access to the links in the description down below. Now, as is the convention, be sure to subscribe, hit that post notification bell so that you are aware of every time we post. And of course, if you like these conversations and you want to keep them going and be part of our game changer community, then definitely like, comment, and share this segment. Let's get into it. Allô les dames et les messieurs. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another segment here on Project Purpose. For those of you who are new, we cover topics that relate to mental health, mental wellness, and education on a week-by-week basis. And today our topic of discussion is mental health. And I'm here to talk about how we need to collectively destigmatize different emotions that get a bad rep. And I'm telling you, these emotions get a bad rep for all of the wrong reasons. And the emotion that I'd like to highlight in this conversation is anger. And I want to talk about anger because a lot of us have a lot of shame and guilt around feeling angry, around being angry. And that makes us want to create distance between ourselves and some of the anger that we experience. And here is the crux of the issue. If we're too busy judging ourselves for the anger that we're experiencing and that is boiling up on the inside, then we're not giving ourselves the space, or we're not giving ourselves the permission to allow that anger to manifest itself, and then to also do some discovery and get a sense as to where that anger is coming from. And the problem with stigmatizing emotions is it really creates a block. It creates an internal obstacle within us because we're so busy trying to become or conform to what society expects us to be and conform to the emotions that are appropriate, that when we experience an emotion that is deemed inappropriate or unbecoming, then we're too busy judging ourselves for being in that emotion rather than getting to the root of why that emotion is coming up. And for me, I have to say, I've reached a place of full acceptance, and I'm someone, like I've told you many times, I'm a highly sensitive person. And a lot of the times what people immediately assume when they hear highly sensitive is that I'm prone to crying. But I am someone who experiences every emotion deeply, and that includes anger. And part of the road to self-mastery that I needed to take on was my grasp on my own anger. And honestly, I'm telling you, external judgments and the opinions of others and the ways that people expected me to show up in different spaces did not help my own inner struggle with trying to gain mastery on my anger. And I came to the realization, and I came to it probably in my adolescent years, mid-adolescent years, that my anger was my inner inner barometer of justice. I was never just angry for no reason. I was angry because I was hurt because of something that I was subjected to that I just didn't feel was fair. But I also recognized that I didn't have the power to deal with given the age and stage that I was in. And also I didn't have the tools to deal with it constructively. So I think this conversation is really focused on destigmatizing anger and also level setting so that we can all think about anger in a more positive light. I think we need to reframe the way that we position anger, and we need to also recognize it's our inner barometer of justice, whether that is justice by way of what it is that we ourselves are personally experiencing, or justice by way of what we see taking place in the world that isn't permissible by our standpoint, but maybe is being allowed to take place and we just aren't equipped, we don't have the power to deal with it, or maybe anger is giving us sort of the desire or the drive to push forward and create change. But anger in and of itself, I think, is unnecessarily demonized. And I think that as we focus on self-mastery, as we focus on self-acceptance, one of the areas that we really need to just give ourselves a break is with anger. And I've said this in so many videos. Every emotion that we experience is energy in motion, and anger is energy and it needs to move through us, right? It needs to be felt, it needs to be accepted, it needs to be respected. There is nothing about our anger that makes us unworthy or that makes us incompatible or unable to continue to build and to create and to develop in a societal collective. For that to take place, for us to reach this place of self-acceptance, I think that there are a few things that we need to be clear on when it comes to anger. And then manage in alignment with yourself. And I think that this is so important because sometimes the way that we treat our emotions is the way that we recognize society expects us to treat those emotions. We try to conform to what the expectations are of those around us. And as a result of that sense of needing to conform, we ignore the signal that those emotions are sending to us. And I would like to break away from that mold. What I would like us to do is respect and accept the emotions that are within us, and then cultivate the tools and the skills that we need so that that expression is self-serving and not self-sabotaging. And that's going to be one of the points that we dive deep on in today's discussion. But the first thing that I want to do as part of our level set and our destigmatizing of emotions that are demonized, specifically the emotion of anger, I really want to demarcate between personal and societal construct. And I think that all of us have a personal experience with each of our different emotions, that we try to get a sense as to the alignment between how we feel and how that emotion shows up within us, and how society has kind of constructed the norms around the expression and the ways of being that take place with that emotion. And I think that with anger, a lot of us pit our personal experience of anger with the societal construct of anger. So someone who is really volatile, who's unpredictable, and who like really is brash and kind of a bull in a china house in the way that they cope and manage and deal with anger. And I think that this isn't always the case for everyone. And I think that anger is an emotion, and how it is expressed is something entirely different. And part of why we demonize the anger that we experience within ourselves is because we recognize that people who are quote unquote angry show up in spaces that maybe we ourselves are fairly critical of and fairly uncomfortable with when those people show up in those spaces, in that state of anger. And I think that a lot of the ways that we feel we need to demonstrate and showcase our emotions are societally constructed. So it's not necessarily the way that we would personally, show up in different spaces with that emotion. It's just the way that we've been conditioned to. But when we strip back the conditioning, when we move away from conformity, then we allow ourselves to be who we are organically in those specific emotions. And I have to say that my journey with anger, the process of self-mastery, so my formative years and my adolescent years, I really was not equipped. I did not have the tools to handle my anger with care. But I think that what it taught me was I was figuring it out, right? And I think that children today have less bandwidth to do is get a sense of who they are and how to articulate different emotions in a way that is self-serving. And we don't automatically know that, right? Sometimes we need to express our emotion, get that response, to get a sense as to next time I'm in this emotional state, this is the way that I'd like to engage so that I'm not hurting others. But part of why that path is so confusing and so convoluted is because of these societal constructs around all of these emotions and how we expect other people to show up when they are in this emotion, and then how we condition ourselves to show up when we're feeling those emotions ourselves. But not all of us show up those ways. If we block out the caricatures, if we block out the societal norms around each of the specific emotions, and we allow ourselves to show up in different spaces in a way that we feel there's an inner alignment. And I think when you have inner alignment, your emotions don't get the best of you. And when you have that inner alignment, your emotions work for you rather than against you, and don't create scenarios where you're really having to do a lot of damage control. And that brings me to my second point, which is feeling versus expression. And I think that a lot of why we are confused and why we struggle with accepting specific emotions is because we take the emotion and we coalesce it with its expression or with the ways that we are used to expressing that specific emotion. And with anger, this couldn't be closer to the truth. And I think that feeling anger is very different from the way that we express anger. And when we're on that path of self-mastery, we're learning different ways of expression that again are self-serving. And we're also learning the ways of self-expression that are self-sabotaging. And what I found that I can be very angry and I don't need to express my anger in a way that I know down the road is going to hurt me. And the more that I allow myself to feel anger, to allow myself to sit in that anger and to understand where the anger is coming from, the more I can also give myself the space to be cerebral so that I can express that anger in ways that are self-serving and not self-sabotaging. And a lot of us don't get to that stage where we can not only monitor our emotions, but also manage our emotions, which are the two components of emotional intelligence, because we don't allow ourselves to sit in the emotion because we feel, oh, this emotion is taboo. I can't feel it. I'm going to internalize it, or I'm going to let it get to be so big that it explodes. And there are many casualties that are a byproduct of that explosion. If we give ourselves permission to be in that emotion, and that permission just gives us the opportunity to kind of be in that state without expressing it, right? Because we feel the emotion before we feel the need to express the emotion. If we demarcate the feeling from the expression, then we can also gauge what is the best form of expression that works given the context and given the situation. And I think that that is so important because there aren't just these hard, fast rules about what is appropriate when it comes to expressing a certain emotion. And I can tell you, during my formative years and during my adolescent years, I've definitely been very creative. I've been very inventive, and I've probably tried every which way by way of expressing my anger. And I've learned what ways serve me best. And I'm not someone who gets angry very frequently. I think I learned to handle my anger when I got to the point where I accepted the fact that I was angry. I allowed myself permission to be angry without judging and feeling bad about myself for being angry. And then I asked myself, well, what is it that's feeding this anger? Why is this anger still here? And when I got to the root of that, I could address that in a way that was self-serving and not self-sabotaging. And that came without necessarily needing to express that anger. So I think that we need to really recognize that we can sit in our emotions and keep those emotions to ourselves, even if they're big emotions like anger, without needing to express them. But there are going to be situations that involve expression. And I think that what is constructive and what is destructive in the way that we express emotions is dependent on the context. And when you know yourself and when you accept yourself and when you are in alignment, your emotions are not going to go out of their way to disservice you. Your emotions are going to be there to support you in communicating the message the appropriate way that that message needs to be communicated for that given situation. And I think that that's an important note, because I don't think I would ever say that different ways of expression are always wrong. I think sometimes the context and the situation will require a certain level of expression or a certain intensity of expression. But I think that the more that we focus on being self-serving in the way that we express our emotions, the less we're going to feel okay, I've really shot myself in the foot by expressing my emotion in this specific situation. And I think that anger, again, is our barometer of inner justice. It tells us that what's happening around us isn't right, isn't okay, even if we haven't received the education that tells us that it's not okay, even if we haven't heard the messaging that this is wrong and this isn't how we ought to be treated. I think anger provides us an inner compass for what we recognize is our sense of right or wrong, or what we're personally comfortable with. And enough people have felt that way in history that we have these collective ideals around right and wrong, around justice. But each of us has their own personal ideal as well. And it's okay, if you feel a way about something and no one else is reacting that way, but because you feel that way, you can reorient yourself differently. And again, expression is something that can be self-serving, and you only give yourself the opportunity to choose the way that you express an emotion as big and as intense as anger when you accept it, and you accept that you feel it, and you don't judge and criticize yourself for feeling angry, and you don't allow people to label you as an angry person because of your anger. And I think that that is something that we also do way too frequently, is we assign labels to people because of the emotions that they're in. And I think that, if someone is frequently angry, it begs the question, like, what is it that you're not addressing that creates this anger that is constant and that is consuming? And it's more a point of concern than a point of judgment that we should all have. And we should try to be a little bit more supportive of the people who are battling and grappling with emotions that seem to be taking control. But the point of emotions, again, they're signals. Our emotions love us. And I am someone who firmly believes the emotions that we experience are emotions that we experience to give us an opportunity to go deep, to get a better sense of who we are, of what we value, what we believe in, what our principles are, and then to align and orient our behavior accordingly. So feelings and expression are different, but our feelings give us a sense of what expressions are required in given situations. And I think that it's important to give that context, to give that perspective, because so many of us feel so much shame and guilt for the feelings that we have. And I think that it's not about feeling bad. It's not about allowing yourself to be judged and criticized, whether that's by the external gaze or by yourself for the emotions that you experience, but recognizing, well, what expressions are self-serving and what expressions are self-sabotaging based on the context and the situation. And I think that that is the only way that I would ever try to teach self-mastery around a specific emotion. I think that there are so many different situations that require like different types of reactions and different types of expressions of specific emotions, but never are our emotions bad, right? Our emotions are not bad. Our feelings don't deserve to be demonized, to be stigmatized. There are no emotions that I would immediately be like, this is a bad emotion, like this emotion, exit emotion. And I think that we need to stop doing that. We need to stop making people feel ashamed and feel guilty for feeling specific emotions so that they can get into where that emotion is stemming from, get to the root of that emotions without dealing with first the judgment and the criticism and the shame. And I think that this was an important conversation to jump on here and talk about. And I think when it comes to mental health, sometimes we are the ones who are building the roadblocks that enable us to be mentally healthy, to feel that mental fortitude. And I think that some of the traditional norms really hinder our ability to reach a place of self-acceptance and of self-love and feeling worthy and feeling like, hey, my emotions are here to serve me, but how can I also ensure that the choices I make and the way they express these emotions serve me just as well? So I wanted to jump in here and just have that quick conversation with you, destigmatize anger completely, because anger, there's nothing wrong with anger. But if you're expressing your anger in a way that has not been serving you, then I think that that's something that you want to think about. But don't judge yourself. We're all works in progress. We're all trying, we're all learning, we're all iterating until we get to a place of inner alignment. And I'm telling you, inner alignment doesn't mean that everyone's going to agree with the way that you feel comfortable expressing that emotion. And I am someone, I love myself through and through. And I'm as flawed as the next person, but I love every way that I show up. And I love myself for the mistakes that I've made. I am forgiving to myself because I recognize that I'm always trying, right? I'm always trying. And I know that perfection is not achievable, but it doesn't mean I'm not going to try to be a better person than what I was the day before. And if I'm angry and I feel that anger and the way that I express that anger isn't in alignment with me serving my best self, even acknowledging that, forgiving myself for it, and then giving myself a chance to enable that alignment, to have that higher degree of alignment the next time that a situation that is similar comes up, then I'm going to rise to the occasion. And because my focus is always on self-betterment and on self-alignment and on having that inner peace. And I think that with that inner peace, like external voices, criticisms, judgments, opinions of others, I really could care less, right? Because I know that the way that I engage with the world around me, there's reflection there. There's a lot of introspection there. And if I feel that with a specific feeling that I'm having, especially with anger, that this form of expression is the most appropriate way to show up, know that I've had those thoughts before I show up that way. I like to introspect. I like to sit in my emotions. I give myself permission to sit and experience that emotion, get to the root of that emotion, and then decide how am I going to engage with this emotion moving forward. A lot of the ways that I deal with anger now is avoidance, right? It's avoidance, and that's because I have the choice to pivot, reorient, and move on with my life. A lot of people confront, deal with it. I think that if the outcome that I'm looking for or I feel that I need involves a conversation, involves a discussion, involves a confrontation, then I will absolutely do that. I don't navigate from a place of fear. I don't navigate from a place of anxiety and feeling unsure. I navigate from a place of clarity. A lot of the times, if what I'm experiencing is anger and the choice that I make is to move away and to create distance and to limit access, is because I know that that's the expression that serves me best. Silence is communication, and I feel like silence is the strongest strongest communicator. And as an adult now, like a lot of the situations that I'm dealing with people who are aware and they know what they're doing. They have a strong and clear understanding of their own personal intentions. And maybe they think that, you know, like I'm blind or I'm ignorant or I'm naive and I don't quite know the hidden motive or the underlying intention. So why would I react so strongly as to like not communicate? So many people think that they're operating in hiding, like that they're not easy to read despite their masquerading as trying to be supportive and be helpful and all that good stuff. And like for me, like when people do that, it makes me angry. They don't feel that anger because I don't feel the need to express it. The anger will just translate as me creating distance and, you know, limiting access. And I think that that's the best way to resolve someone who feels inclined to engage with me in that way. But to call it avoidant is to falsely assume that my actions are being driven by insecurity, by hurt, by pain, by like not feeling like I have the words or the capability to deal with it head on. I'm just choosing not to because it's not worth it to me, because the outcome that I feel best serves me, it means cutting that or those people out. But I find a lot of the time, like I'm very slow to anger. And when I say slow to anger, like it takes a lot for me to feel like really, really angry. But that's mostly because like a little bit of anger is enough for me to act, right? A little bit of anger when I feel like disrespected in a way where like I feel like you're intentionally trying to disrespect me, or if I feel like you're intentionally trying to get under my skin. All of these things, I take these signals for what they are from the first instant that I feel them, and I respond accordingly. And like that comes with just feeling an inner alignment, having acceptance with the emotions that take place in me, not judging them, not criticizing them, not wishing them away. I am who I am, and it is what it is. And the things that make me tick might not be the things that make you tick, but I'm going to respond to what makes me tick in a way that I feel best serves me. And that's that, really. In any case, that's all that I want to say, and that's probably saying a whole heck of a lot. But if you're still here, before letting you go, I would be remiss if I didn't let you know that we will be going live at least twice a month, every month for the foreseeable future on our Facebook page. So definitely be sure to join in on our live discussions where we provide the critical thinking and the soft skills just to derive more meaning and fulfillment out of life. And if you do see yourself participating in our Game Changer community on an ongoing basis, and I hope that you do, then I do suggest that you take a look at our package plans. So our package plans provide you with access to an unlimited number of our live events and also access to our webinars and our workshops over and above those live events. So definitely meander over to the website, subscribe to the website, follow us on all of our social media channels, help us to grow so that we can gain the visibility that we need to really make a difference and to create an impact to the world around us. All of us need a little bit of light, and we're here trying to shine it. In any case, that's it for today. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I look forward to chatting with you very soon.